welcome to our virtual teaching talk.
My name is Pete Apple, but I teach in IVIT. I've been teaching since 2015 adjunct, and I teach marketing classes, IT classes, mostly ISIT classes, information system technology, problem-solving strategies, also marketing classes, and some business classes as well that relate to IT, mostly in the BAS program. So it's great to be here. It's a real honor. So I appreciate the invitation and I look forward to it. Okay. Everybody see that okay? Can I get a thumbs up? Yep. Okay. So before we start, I just wanted to say thank you all for having me. I'm currently pursuing my master's at Drexel University in the School of Education in a degree called Creativity and Innovation. And last winter, as COVID started to reach its ugly hands on us, my project for my master's was to basically try to come up with a new premise or a new hypothesis of how we could make online learning better than on-ground learning. And it was a real challenge. So this is a lot to do with the research I did and the experience I got there. And then I got a chance to test it in spring quarter. So this was most recently kind of like a practicum that I got to apply to the students in my class in BUS 355, the legal aspects of IT. So let's just dive right in here. So the current paradigm or the limiting beliefs is that on-ground teaching is better than online. And here's some of the beliefs that I know that I've lived in and that I've found through other teachers and other faculty that I've talked to, that it's far superior, that it's more challenging to engage students, pique their interest and motivate in an online learning environment. Sorry. That it's impossible to have a rich, engaging dialogue with online classes. Traditional classroom presentations, team building exercises are near impossible with online training, and that there's a higher dropout or withdrawal rate with online classes. There was a San Jose State suspended their program when they found that 56 to 76% of the students failed their final exam. And here's what the professors had to say, that the move to MOOCs, so the massive open online courses, comes at great peril to our university, and professors who care about public education should not produce products that will replace professors, dismantle departments, and provide a diminished education for students in public universities. So this is the starting point, right? So I think all of us can identify with this, and everything we've talked about today is that an online experience is challenging. I'm the on-ground teacher, right? Teaching online is very challenging for me. Learning online is challenging for me. So moving to an online environment was something I really wanted to take on personally, because I didn't think it was possible to make it better or even make it work. So here's the new premise. Online course instruction is interesting, engaging, and motivating. So that's where I was going after. So I accepted the challenge to prove that we could do it, right? I wanted to prove to myself that online courses have advantages or could possibly be better than traditional methods of classroom learning. So I wanted to really turn it upside down, really reverse the thinking that we were coming from. And there's the obvious, right? So no traffic and late and trying to find parking on campus at Bellevue College. Easy to schedule work and family balance, potentially, even though synchronous classes is different than asynchronous. We could maybe get a greater outreach, possibly greater enrollment in our classes if we had online, less chance for sickness or spreading virus. We can record the class. I mean, I never tried to record a class. I recorded presentations before in class, but trying to get an actual recording of the material is challenging in an on-ground environment. So how do we pique their interest, engage, and motivate? So I think everybody's this is where we're kind of in agreement that these are some of the obvious advantages, but let's really get into it. So here's the 6 strategies that I came up with to try to keep a motivated and engaged class. The first is I instituted accountability partners. I use synchronous video classrooms, structure and consistency, breakout rooms with open-ended questions, video discussion feedback rather than written feedback, the 72-hour rule, which I'll talk about each of these, and personal reflection and journal assignments. By the way, this PowerPoint, my email's at the end. If you want it right away, you can email me and I'll send it to you. I'm also going to forward it off to the SEC, so we'll have it, and you guys can have it for sure. So let's talk a little bit about why and how I instituted these. So accountability partners is my favorite, and it's because of online enrollment and online engagement seems to diminish as the quarter goes on. I thought that we could help students by engaging in accountability partners, basically assigning a person to another person in the class. They may have been intrinsically motivated to sign up for the class, but they may not be motivated to get up, turn their camera on, and then go online. So I required a mandatory 1-hour check-in with their accountability partners each week. So this is outside of their synchronous classroom where we meet, which is a kind of an attendance-based thing, but not really. I didn't take attendance officially. Partners were picked based on their concentration. So in the BIS program, they're either cybersecurity, application development, or business intelligence. So they were partnered up within their concentration. And they'd also be completing a final assignment together. So they weren't just being together because I wanted them to partner up, but they also were working towards the goal at the end of the quarter. The second thing is the synchronous video classroom. So I really made sure that like this synchronous versus asynchronous is that we have to be together at least once a week. The structured synchronous time to meet every week was key. I required them to come, but did not take attendance. And what I meant by that is you're required to be here, but I didn't give them points for being there. They got points for breakout assignments or something that I'll talk about in a second. I asked each student to mute their audio and show their video, and it was an ask. It was an enrollment and an invitation to. It wasn't a mandatory language. The classes met once a week, and it's 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is hefty. I would say that a Zoom class over 90 minutes is challenging. Even 90 minutes is challenging. So breakout rooms with open-ended questions was really important. As we've talked about in the other speakers today, I think it's key to creating that feeling of a discussion or a dialogue with people. It really creates a connection. So I created breakout rooms that aligned with how I would say, okay, now get into your groups. And I would randomly assign the groups. They would have a task and a conversation. And then I would periodically move through just like I would in a classroom where I'd walk around and I'd check in if they have an assignment or something they're working on. I would see if anybody had any questions. So this is small group interactions, exercises, and dialogue. I also assigned these breakout rooms with points attached like an assignment. So the attendance wasn't assigned, but if you came to class, you would be doing these breakout rooms. So I scaffolded this as giving points to those people who were engaged in the breakout rooms. So that is a way for them to come. So it's kind of not a direct attendance, but an indirect. And in this open-ended questions is a place where I really wanted to see the 3 C's. So I really promote civility, curiosity, and challenge so that people can challenge each other, but as long as they're civil with each other and ask curious questions, like really get curious with each other. So those kind of promotes a dialogue with each other, and that just creates a story and a narrative that they're all working towards. Okay, video discussion feedback, and I know I'm moving fast, and I thought maybe we could just talk at the end if you guys had any questions. The video discussion was really huge because video is so critical to engagement. An asynchronous class is really hard when you just get dumped a whole bunch of materials, you never see anybody, you're never engaging with anyone. So it's really important. And I've taught marketing courses where video has statistics of how successful it is. Viewers retain 95% of a message when they watch it in a video compared to 10% when reading it. Social video generates 1,200% more shares. Viewers are 85% more likely to purchase a product after watching a product video. So I took that and really thought, okay, how do we start this off? So I had every student do their introduction as a recorded 60 to 90-second video. So they did an intro to their phone or a camera on their computer and uploaded it before the class started. Instead of trying to do that in Zoom, I had everybody watch everybody as part of an assignment before we met for the first time. And then also I offered and really invited people to not have to respond to other discussion posts with a written, but they could actually respond with video. So they could literally just post a video saying, hey, Johnny, I really like what you had to say. Here's how I agree. Here's what I disagree. And do it with video as a way of trying to continue this engagement. And there's a little note here about how Canvas limits size uploads. So I wanted to include this here. If you have any questions, I can help explain how I had everybody do their video uploads because of the constraining aspect of Canvas. The 72-hour rule came from Stephen King's memoir on writing. When he starts a novel or a short story, if he starts writing every day, if he goes longer than 72 hours without communicating, connecting, or writing that part more of that story, he loses the thread. He loses the connection to it. And I'm a writer myself, and I know exactly, you have to almost have to start back over. I'm sure all of you can feel the idea that when you start a project, if you give more than 3 days, you almost have to like start over in a way. So I took this into consideration that within every 72 hours, they got an announcement. The assignments were staggered. Their accountability, like I asked them to stagger everything, and so that things happened at least every 72 hours or within that, so that they never really could lose the connection that we made in class. So like I'm saying here on the announcements and stuff. Okay, so finally it's the personal reflection journal, and this is me trying to figure out whether any of this stuff is working. You know, I'm putting a lot out there and changing the way I do courses, so I really wanted to get an idea. So this was an idea to say, like, I want to stay connected with the students, and I was even thinking that we would have a one-on-one with every student during the quarter, but I thought that was just unsustainable. They're already connected to an accountability partner, so I know that they're connected with somebody in class. I wanted to stay connected with them, and I wanted them to feel connected to me. So this is a way to do that without a one-to-one exchange. Creative research shows that journal writing and reflection time is a great way to integrate the material. So I also thought this would be a way for them to just be able to reflect on what's happening in the class, what do they like, what do they not like, what assignments are benefiting, and what are they learning and enjoying. And then also there's the accountability partner. If they got a partner that wasn't as engaged, this is a way for them to say, hey, my partner isn't meeting with me or making it very difficult to meet with me. So this is a way for them to kind of say that without emailing me and saying, hey, my partner is difficult, which actually never happened. And finally, with the virus, and I just wanted to get a heartbeat or a pulse on how people are doing at home, and this was a way for them to potentially just check in. So the results, man, I was blown away. This was the first time in 5 years that I taught a class at Bellevue on ground. This is my first online class teaching where every student completed the class and nobody failed or withdrew or dropped away. Every other quarter I've ever taught, there's either one or two students that just kind of fizzle out into the ether, and that never happened this quarter. So for me, I was like, you know, I was just so surprised. Their reflections were amazing too. The accountability partner, they came back and said that they loved being with somebody who maybe there was somebody who was just starting the program and somebody just finishing. They had kind of a non-official mentorship started to happen, which was really cool. That just kind of happened magically. And the students engaged in the breakout rooms, and it felt like they were just hanging out. I loved it. And we did have time, so I didn't want to blow them away with Zoom lecture time. So if there was time and I wanted them to get together, we used breakout rooms, and it really worked. So I know we've got a little time here. I wanted to show you a couple of these, and this is in the PowerPoint, so I'll forward it to you. But these are some of the personal reflections that I've got was that people were saying they were disappointed. They were looking forward to an on-ground class. I prefer on-campus classes, and I like being able to interact. Despite that, I've surprisingly enjoyed our classes. It's refreshing to have actual class engagement in contrast to other online classes. It's going great for me. Accountability, I like working with my partner because she is straight to the point, easy to collaborate with. So there's others. I have like several pages of these personal reflections where people came back just kind of saying how much they enjoyed the style and how it worked for them. So anyway, that's there's more here, but I thought this would be a great time to kind of bring it back and see if you guys had any questions or thoughts.
I totally have to run, but I just wanted to say that was awesome. Actually, all three of you were awesome. But that's all I wanted to say.
Awesome.
Yeah, I actually had tons of questions. This is so great in many ways, but I will start with one. The accountability part, like, how do you usually set it up? Is it totally random? Have you ever run into any scenario where students are struggling working with their partner?
So the accountability partner aspect is very new. Usually there's some kind of a group presentation or something that happens after the halfway point where they get together, and honestly, it's hit or miss. Most of the time there's always somebody who doesn't necessarily engage with everybody else in groups. But for the accountability partner, I spent time making sure and picking students. So before the quarter started, I had the department IBIT tell me which concentration each student was in, and generally kind of how far along they were in the program. I needed to do that too because I also assigned books to them to work on as part of their final project, and it was based specifically on their concentration. So I just teamed them up with their concentrations, and I did. It wasn't random. I had I only had I think it was about 16 students, so there was 8 groups, and it just happened to be that they were even for the concentration.
Can you explain a little more about the concentration part? Because I'm thinking about how it applies to my own class and what factors I need to consider while pairing up my students. Because I want to be conscious about sometimes about how comfortable, let's say, a female student would feel working with a totally stranger at the beginning of the quarter, especially a stranger, male student and things like that. Students coming from, like more like minority groups, working with white students, etc.
Sure. So the concentrations for the BAS program is there's cybersecurity, application development, and business intelligence. And that's the degree. They're like their major for their, Bachelor of Applied Sciences. So they'll end up doing a capstone at the end in that department. So in that concentration. So they'll have a capstone for cybersecurity, capstone for BI, but they take classes together throughout the BAS program mixed. So they're all thrown together in a pot. So many of the times I'm teaching courses, almost all of the courses except for the capstone that I teach, I have a mix of all 3 students. And sometimes some of the students know more about some material than others, and sometimes it applies to certain students, like the business intelligence, any kind of data analytics, or any kind of sorting of data and big data conversations. Those students, they sit and lean forward. Any application development or design conversations, software development students come forward. So in this way, I had to kind of create a curriculum for those students to try to make it neutral. But then in this course, I made it neutral until they were assigned together. And then I was like, okay, you guys are partnered and you're going to focus on your concentration, and you're both in your same concentration. Now, that being said, male, female, multi-race, international students, language issues, that comes with the territory. That's, you sign up for a class, you come on in, you're gonna get what you get. If there were problems or issues, I really tried to open myself up to hearing from them, but they loved it. They loved the fact that they could pair up with, there wasn't a single teammate that ever in their personal reflections said they didn't like their partner. They all said they loved their partners. So either I got lucky, or there was something about maybe the way it was scaffolded a little. They had to create a video at the beginning to introduce themselves. Maybe many of the students knew each other as well in other courses. So there's that. There was a lot of new students in there, though, mixed with a lot of students that were in the senior level that were about to graduate. So it was like ninth graders mixed with seniors, and in that way, it was kind of fun. So I it would be hard to, like, we could have an aside after this, Jen, and talk about it, because I think the accountability partners to me was probably the most profound aspect of this, and I think one of the reasons that the students stuck it out and hung in there, because everybody goes through that lull in the halfway point in the quarter, and you need a little boost, and sometimes the teachers can offer that, and sometimes our families can offer it, and maybe other students in the class can do that. And in this case, I really hoped that they would motivate each other, and I think it really worked.
Hi. So, Pete, I really love these success items, and I have one question, but I also wanted to say that I love the accountability partner piece. When I taught a tech writing course, one of the things we did was students would peer review each other's work. So they wouldn't only get the perspective of the instructor, but they would get the perspective of other students in the class who all had different backgrounds. And the other reason that I like that interaction is because for example, in technical writing, you're frequently working on teams, and you're frequently submitting your work for review to other teams, to other consultant firms, to like state departments of ecology or whatever. And so you have to get used to the working together with people who are different from you, who have different perspectives, and also you have to learn how to do things like constructive criticism, not just saying, oh, this is terrible, but how can that be improved, or what is wrong with it, or what is it missing? And so I really love that accountability partner piece that you had, because I think that also drove engagement. And I think also in a lot of online courses, students flounder a little bit, because even when you have an open discussion, it's kind of like you don't really feel connected to everybody. And so I think the accountability partners gave a closer connection in the class, and somebody besides the instructor to, I don't want to say rely on, but to partner with. But one of the questions I had, and maybe you mentioned this and I missed it, but when you have the reflection piece, is that reflection done throughout the course? Is it done after the course? Is it done at the midpoint? How do you structure the reflection piece?
Oh, that's a great question, and thanks for all your comments. I especially love the feedback part. We spend a lot of time peer reviewing. We have many assignments where I'm not the only one. I believe that when we critique other people's writing, we get better as writers, and so it's a big part of that too. So thanks for that. I assigned 2 personal reflections, one about the 3rd or 4th week, and one near the 7th and 8th week. So about the, a little bit of the ways in and just before we start to finish up, 2 times through. And I think some of the feedback, some really good feedback too, and they're in the personal reflections there. I included some of the constructive feedback about a 2-hour intense class once a week is a killer, and a lot of people were like, that's a tough nut to crack. But of course, my hands were tied. I couldn't just all of a sudden say. I asked actually before the quarter started if I could break the class up into a 20 twice a week, and of course I couldn't do that synchronously. And so that's some of the feedback I received in the personal reflections. Some of the other feedback in there too was that the personal reflections assignment felt like busy work. Like they were like, this is busy work. Why are we doing this? And that makes sense because it was for me. It honestly was for me. Look, I put a lot of risky stuff out there this quarter, going from a classroom where I teach in front of everyone and I'm really kind of in everybody's face and I'm connected with everyone, to being on Zoom. Like I had to do some of these things for myself and I really needed to know whether it was working or not. So the personal reflections, I could see them saying, hey, this felt like busy work. And yeah, it was definitely selfish for me to find out, number one, like, I want to know how you're doing personally. Number two, is this stuff working? Are you feeling it? Or what are you hating about all this stuff? And they were honest in there. It was great. It was a great way for them to give some feedback.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I mean, the evaluations at the end of the quarter is such a limited feedback for, you know, of course we're, as faculty in the school gets that, and that's important. But I want more than that. I want to know, like, I'm experimenting here because I've taught this class 3 times on ground, and all of a sudden I'm teaching it online, and I'm like, you know, I need to get more feedback than that. So that's why, and I don't want to wait till the end to find out if it's working. That's not good for the students either.
Well, and I think that sometimes in the more formal surveys, students don't necessarily say everything the way they actually feel about it, and they develop a relationship with you as their instructor, and so I think they're willing to share some things with you. Their frustrations or their expectations are different than what's happening, or if they have problems, because you're there in the trenches with them. And the surveys actually, go to like an administrative place rather than,
And they did not hold back. I mean, they wrote more in the personal reflections than any of their discussion or essays. I mean, it was like pages of like talking and like going on and on. I was like, wow, like, thank you so much for that. And honestly, you're right. Like they appreciated and spoke vulnerably there. And in the evaluations, it wasn't very elaborate. It was very, it was very cut. I mean, it was similar critiques in the evaluations at the end than what I received,
But less expressive.
Oh, sorry. I have a related question regarding the reflection. Is this assignment usually graded? Do you usually have students do anonymously or just put their name on it? Just wondering about ways I can possibly like facilitate, honest or authentic responses.
I definitely their name on it. This is their stuff they're putting in there. The rubric for it was to just get it in on time. And really, if you put it in on time, you would get full credit. So it was like you showed up, for it or not. I didn't grade people based on how vulnerable they got or how much they shared. I wouldn't do that. And I didn't, and they know that, if they didn't, by the time that they got to about the 4th week, they're realizing that, I'm a big inviter I'm inviting them. I'm not forcing them. It's not a mandatory thing. It's a big invitation with a, like, you're going to get so much more out of this if you come along. Right. And because of that, I don't make very strict assignments about exactly how things have to do. I'd rather let them just be creative and design their own way of sometimes handing things in. Hence, like the video feedback. I think that's such a great way for them to engage, instead of writing out something at the last minute at midnight, like, recording a response and putting in a discussion is so cool. Like, why not?
Thank you, Pete.
Sorry. And that's also supporting universal design for learning, where you offer students multiple ways of completing something.
Absolutely, for sure. And if any students, because we're so new to this and the virus and what's happening in their lives, if any student came to me and asked for any accommodation at all, whether they had a DRC or not, of course, I'm like, and that's what I've come to learn in 5 years as an adjunct at Bellevue, is that as more accommodations are necessary, I just created the course to accommodate everybody. So as I changed one thing, I changed it. It just made it more inclusive for everybody. And then really opening opportunities for people to design how they want to engage into the course. Opening access points for everybody. It's definitely challenging though. Like as a teacher, teaching on ground in the room is where I thrive. So this has been a real challenge, especially as we talk about the video and like holding space and trying to make eye contact with everybody. Yeah, the whole gallery and a big screen of trying to watch everybody's face. It's a tough nut. That's hard. That's hard to do. I think my recommendations would be the future, if we go a whole year like this, that we should have assistant teachers to help hold space for larger numbers in a classroom.
Thank you, Peter. I just wanted to add that I agree with you that students appreciate the reflection pieces, because students will think, oh, my instructor is allowing us to share and for us to give better ideas, suggestions, and so on. That doesn't mean that we're going to be changing everything, but at least students are going to see that we're trying. We're trying to improve the class, and I think that's great. And another comment that I wanted to say, and also what Blaise said about UDL, I have started to use the feedback as video, and because I'm teaching a language, Spanish, students are more eager to, instead of typing it, to record themselves because they want to hear everybody's accent and just to practice the language. So I like that idea very much, and I agree with Blaise that it follows the UDL principles.
Awesome, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Pete, for presenting.
Yeah, this was
Thank
great.
you for, yeah, thanks for letting me be here. It's been an honor.